And welcome back, Rugby fans, to Rugby411. As always, I'm your host. My name is Joshua Shibata, and this is late-breaking news. Just announced the Women's Elite Rugby, WER, the very first professional women's rugby league in the United States. As always, with us here at Rugby411, I'm all about promoting the sport of rugby here in the United States. You know, I am always big in supporting Major League Rugby, the Premiership Sevens program as well, and this is now the next big step in women's rugby, having the very first professional league, WER, Women's Elite Rugby, just announced through their Twitter and Instagram. And we're going to talk about everything that we know, which isn't a lot, mind you, about the WER. Now, the WER president is Dr. Jessica Hammond-Graf, who is a former Rugby USA Women's Sevens player, as well as she was the assistant athletic director of the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, UMBC. She is also a chairwoman of the current Women's Premier League, which is basically the highest level of women's rugby here in the United States. Is not a pro league. It is more of a amateur slash semi-pro league. It's pay to play kind of league. It definitely doesn't have the same payoffs or the same publicity or the same money making as Major League Rugby. This Women's Elite Rugby would be the next step. So through her relationship, Dr. Jessica Hammond-Graf with the WPL is the formation of Women's Elite Rugby, which their plans is to launch next year in 2025 with the possibility of 68 teams, 30 players per team, with basically the same structured model as Major League Rugby, private financial owners, private investments, and with the ability to pay their players, not necessarily the same as Major League Rugby play, but definitely on that level caliber, basically giving women here in the United States a chance to play on a professional level in rugby. Something that is not in existence right now, but is in existence in many other countries, especially in Europe. So this is a huge opportunity. Of course, through Dr. Jessica Hammond-Graf's connection with the WPL, with the WPL currently going to start their 13th year in existence. They started in 2009, took 2 years off due to COVID, but they're going to be starting their 13th year this season, 2024. They currently have 7 teams, including their 4-time and reigning WPL champions, the Colorado Grey Wolves, who were also at one point the Glendale Raptors and Glendale Merlins, so they have 4 championships total combined. But they're going to be offering those teams the ability to transfer into the Women's Elite Rugby. So a lot of things still up in the air about everything. This is very, very new information. It's a fledgling league. There's no guarantee that it will get into existence in 2025. A lot of things have to happen first, but the timing of this announcement is actually very appropriate because of everything that's going on right now in women's sports. Obviously, biggest thing is college basketball. If you haven't been paying attention, the women's college basketball, which was won by UConn, congratulations, was one of the biggest media, social media platforms right now. I mean, all eyes. It was the biggest watched women's basketball game in the history of women's basketball. The finals, that whole tournament in general. You had some stars like Juju Watkins from USC. I mean, you had all these great players making their names and becoming household names, and it really captured the imagination of not only young girls, but an entire country. Like, everybody was probably talking more about the women's basketball tournament than the men's. I mean, that's how big it was. And so the WER decided now, of course, to capitalize on that, about putting women's sports, especially on a pro level, up onto a pedestal, especially too with recent talks about how much less WNBA players are getting paid and how that should change. Ice Cube making the announcement about paying certain players a little bit more extra money just to kind of compensate for them. So a lot of attention has been made on women's sports in general. Perfect time to start talking about the WER. And also, of course, 2033, we are just 9 years away, 9 short years, if you think about it, from hosting the very first Women's Rugby World Cup here in the United States. Just a couple years after the first Men's World Cup will be hosted here in the United States in 2031. So again, trying to capitalize on that as well, just like the Major League Rugby is trying to get ready to have players ready to showcase in the Men's World Cup in 2031. WER's purpose is to try to help showcase women in preparation for that World Cup here in 2033. So great opportunity. Again, that's really all the information that we have. If you want to follow them, I highly recommend follow them on the X at Rugby Evolved or their website, www.womenseliterugby.us. They have a wait list. You can get all the information from them on that. And yeah, so and of course, any new information that I'll get, I'll be posting here as well because I want to grow the sport of rugby, men and women's. There's no reason that people can't get into women's rugby as much as they can get into men's rugby. Right now, Sevens Rugby has really showcased the women's competition of sevens, put on the same level as the men's. Premiership Sevens, they have the very first interleague cup for both men and women points combined for all the teams. All the teams in Premiership Rugby Sevens has a men's and women's team. There is no lesser teams than others based on the sex. Every franchise has both a men's and women's, giving equal opportunity for both sexes to play. And again, I think that's great. I am just as enamored by watching women's rugby. Heck, the recent WX5, XV, the women's kind of almost like a women's World Cup, but just a little step below, that will be happening every year, is exciting as hell to watch. I mean, the USA women's did a valiant effort in their competition for that. So did the Japan women. Of course, you know, your usual suspects in New Zealand and Australia did great. But yeah, I mean, it is just as exciting to watch women's rugby as it is men's. So this is a great opportunity to showcase talent here in the United States for women, showing young women players that they too have a pathway to make it to the highest level competition. Hopefully one day representing the USA as an Eagles in the World Cup in 2033 here on US soil. So again, that's all the information we have. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Any more information, I will put more as they come here on Rugby411. As always, thank you very much for checking out my video, and I hope to see you on the pitch.